Hey you guys, it's Rachel here with Senza Tempo Cane Corso. So I'm out here with the dogs, cleaning out their pool, filling it up with water so they have clean, fresh water to play and drink throughout the day. So one of our daily routines. They're probably all a little dehydrated. I got a little paranoid yesterday, and I switched all my dogs over to a new food because of that FDA notice that went out about the dog foods. There's a good girl, Liberty. You guys sit in the water. You're a good girl. So the FDA list came out, and the food that I was feeding was on it. It's FROMM. But what I didn't know is that, and I should have known, was that it was only the grain-free variety. And I had known that that's what they were saying originally, but on the notice that I saw recently, it didn't actually specify, or maybe I just didn't see it grain-free. So I just pulled my dogs off of it because I got scared. And they were talking about how large breed dogs were going to be more susceptible to it. And so I just pulled them off, and I went back to an oldie, which was the Diamond Naturals. I've used it in the past. I've had really good luck with it, and I just went back to it. I'm feeding my adults the Extreme Athlete, and I'm feeding my puppies the large breed puppy formula. And so that's what I decided to do. But having said that, it was only the grain-free variety, as far as I understand it now, which they were talking about the legumes. So we're talking like lectins. We're talking the pea and the lentils, especially like the pea protein. So, and I was actually doing some research on it, because anytime I see something related to dogs, I always like to search up like the ingredient with humans too. And I know that humans are not dogs, but I do know that we are mammals, and I just like to know that and to kind of keep it into consideration. And there's been some research that has been done on legumes and on just lectins, which are I believe that's either chemical or the protein. I'm not 100% as familiar with this as I would like to be, but I have done enough research on it to where I do feel, my hose is stuck, but I do feel that I actually have a decent enough understanding of it. And so the foods have been linked with humans to have issues, and so I just think a lot of times our success has kind of gotten to us, and we eat a bunch of stuff that we probably wouldn't have eaten had we not been as successful as a species. So that's why I kind of like to pay attention to that stuff. But having said that, it does seem like might be a problem with it. So I just switched all my dogs off of the grain-free variety, and we went back to the Diamond. The From puppy food is so much more expensive, and that's what after I took it back and then I saw that, and I was like, oh, okay, well, I jumped the gun on that. I could have kept feeding that. But then I just realized, like, the From was double the price of the Diamond Naturals. And I just figured, well, I'll try this out and see if I get, less than double the results. And if I don't, then it's not worth double the price. So that's where I'm at. That's what I'm doing. I just wanted to give you guys an update on that. And kind of why, and then also update you on the fact that it is only the grain-free varieties. So if you're feeding a grain-in option, then most likely this really doesn't apply to you. The food scare isn't a big thing. It's unfortunate that, the dog world has really the pet world has exploded recently, and that has left a lot of room for people that, want to make money. And it's just a kind of an unregulated thing. Like you're basically, your dog is the science experiment, and now we're seeing that it, maybe isn't the best thing. It's the same thing when they did the spay and neuter thing. Everybody was like, you need to spay and neuter, you need to spay and neuter. And without even researching the consequences, nobody even used basic logic to realize that a lot about an individual, whether they be human or animal, has a lot to do with hormone production. A lot of the body runs off of it. So the idea that you could just completely alter the way that an animal's body regulates itself and performs and without consequence is, pretty naive, to be honest with you. But nonetheless, when you do those kinds of things, when you jump on the bandwagon of something that we don't really know the consequences to, then you leave yourself open to that. And many people's animals are suffering. Now, I also wanted to talk about, because I really didn't know much about it either, about how they identified this stuff, how they identified that it was even a problem. And what they originally, I guess it was about a year ago now, there were, I think, 5 identified cases of what they call atypical cardiomyopathy, or cardiodilated myopathy, which basically means that the heart expands with fluid and gets extremely thin, like the lining of the heart gets extremely thin, and then the dogs are at risk of heart failure. And so anyway, I had to move to the shade. My phone's getting super hot and the dogs are over here anyway. So atypical meaning that the breeds that were associated are not typically associated with it, and like the ages of the dogs, like it just didn't make any sense for these individuals to be suffering from this. So that's what started the investigation. And then through research, they found, don't quote me on this, you can read the study yourself, but I think around 500 cases of it. And they were linked to those, I think 15 or 16 brands that were posted. Now, I do think it's kind of dubious that they didn't put what were the formulations, right? So brands usually make multiple formulations of dog food. So when you say, just the brand name, then you get people like me who are like, well, I'm not taking a risk with my dog, and we just return it and go to a different brand whenever I could have actually stayed on it. Now, for me, it kind of worked out because I'm not in a position to be spending a whole lot more for dog food that maybe isn't worth it, I would need to know what is so special about From that they feel that they need double the price of Diamond for their grain-in large breed puppy option. So anyway, so that's what I have to say about that. So I did move my dogs over to the Diamond. We'll see how well it does. I know that my adults have been on the Extreme Athlete for a while. They're all doing very good on it. And then Preacher has not. I did switch Preacher over to the Extreme Athlete last night. I had him on Essence. Some people asked me why I took him off of that when it wasn't on the list, and that's because that brand is brand new and they're not going to be on any lists yet. You know what I mean? There hasn't been enough time for there to be any issues, and I'm not going to have Preacher be a guinea pig for that, because ultimately they have ingredients that are being associated with that, which is the chickpea. Look at her, she's so funny. She done wrapped herself up. So I just don't want to take any risk. I did order a sample. There was this dog food that was advertising pretty heavily yesterday for worried about dilated cardiomyopathy. Or is your dog at risk of it? Because there are dogs that are actually at risk for it. It does run in the breed. So anyway, so I did order a sample of that. It is a poultry-free option. It is there is a beef formulation that I'm going to try Preacher on, so that's cool. And they're saying for a extra large breed dog, it will cost me around $150 a month to feed him, which is not bad. The Essence was costing me around $200 a month to feed Preacher alone. So this stuff right here is supposed to be very limited ingredients. It's supposed to be very good. I didn't see anything on there that I thought was weird or, it looked like a really good dog food to me. I cannot remember the name of it, but if you Google DCM, dilated cardiomyopathy in dogs, I'm pretty sure their ad is going to pop up. I didn't even Google that. I just Googled like FDA dog food list and they popped up. So they must be keywording their ad with the FDA, which is very smart, very smart. So anyway, so we'll see, but I'm definitely interested in trying that food. I don't know if I can feed all of my dogs that food, because I literally don't know how much it's going to cost. But I do know that this company is like Munster in the fact that you have to purchase it online, and then what they do is they basically send it once a month. And so you're billed once a month, your whole amount comes once a month. So watch Liberty. Liberty! Come. What a good girl. Yes. What a good girl. What a good girl. What a good girl. Yes. That's a good girl. Who's taking off over there? Blondie? All right, good. Good. So yesterday I'll tell you about Liberty. So yesterday Liberty took off like she had been doing. And Blondie, where are you going? Come on. Come. Good girl. So yesterday she took off and we all went out looking for her, and Savannah caught her, and so it seemed almost like she was a bit afraid to come in, and she kind of let her little puppy mind get the best of her. And so what I decided to do is, she does know recall, she does know what's going on, so I decided to start using a food reward, which is positive reinforcement, to get her to come in. I've already done the discipline side of it. She knows what it is. That's really not her issue, and I think it's always important to work with an individual dog. I work with a lot of dominant dogs. I have a lot of dominant dogs, but she's not one of them. So anyway, so I'm using a different method to work with her. And I've always said that there's nothing wrong with positive reinforcement so long as it's used appropriately without, you don't want to basically, constantly be bribing an animal to do something, right? But she knows the rules, she knows what it is, and like I said, when I saw her, she just seemed slightly, she just got paranoid. She didn't want to come in, and so you could just see that she just kind of let fear get the best of her at that moment. And so, and that's totally normal. She's a puppy, it happens. So especially for a very smart dog, really smart dogs tend to overthink things sometimes. They just like people, we can overwork ourselves. So I decided to not only start working with her more hands-on as far as taking her out and really starting to work with her obedience and stuff and get all of that down, but I've also started using a positive enforcer to get her to come back. And basically rewarding that. That way it cancels out that part of her brain that gets, kind of fearful. I'm not saying that she is like a weak-tempered dog or anything. I think all of you can see that. She's very strong. She's not a lower pack member. When somebody's out here, she barks, she protects, all of that. But she just is a very smart dog, and she can overthink things sometimes. And so using a food reward is a really good way to kind of cancel that out. We're not bribing her to do it so much as we're trying to teach her brain that there is something really great that is going to be better than getting to go and roam around for her if she decides to come back. And so that is the idea. So anyway, so I don't, I speak a lot about positive reinforcement in the sense that I'm not usually one to use it because I typically don't need to. I don't think that positive reinforcement is near as necessary as a lot of people think it is, but there are certain times with certain dogs where it is a benefit and it does work. And so when I see those dogs, I'm not going to deny them what they need just because I personally find the people that promote it to be deceptive. There's it's kind of like, how they used to say, or they still say, too much of a good thing is a bad thing, or too much of anything is a bad thing. Everything in moderation, all of that. I feel that that's what is up with the positive reinforcement thing. I think that it is a method that can work sometimes for some things, and people decided to say, okay, well, this is all we need to do. And I think that that's wrong. And in fact, on that note, one of Preacher's sons, I was actually working with this guy. One of Preacher's sons had to be returned to the breeder, not me, but to the other breeder that had used Preacher for stud, actually one of Clout's brothers, full brothers, because they did nothing but positive reinforcement and clicker training with this dog. And he was aggressive, food aggressive, and they basically ignored it for a while, and then whenever they did go about it, they kind of went about it pretty lackluster, and so the dog chased him around the house. And then the second time he asked me for advice, he did not listen to my advice. He listened to the trainer that he had been working with the whole time, the one that did the clicker and treat training, and the dog did it again. He tried to call him off his food, and then he tried to get down eye level with the dog and praise the dog, love on the dog, which is the absolute worst thing he could have done. And the dog attacked him and got his arm pretty good, got other parts of his body as well. And he just wouldn't do what was necessary. He flat out said it whenever he dropped the dog off. He wasn't going to do what we had told him to do. He wanted to do what the trainer told him to do. And then I find out that this trainer used to have a Cane Corso, and it attacked his father, tore his father's arm up. And now the same trainer is out there giving advice and ends up getting the guy who he's giving advice to torn up by his Corso. So this guy now is 2 for 2 in trying to help somebody with an aggressive Corso and getting that dog to attack the people. And I would sue. Honestly, I would have sued that trainer in a heartbeat. In all my years training dogs, not one of my clients has been bitten by their dog. Not one of them. And he wouldn't have been bitten had he done what I said to do, but he didn't. And sure enough, the breeder that got the dog back, they did what I told them to do, and the dog immediately responded appropriately and backed off the food. So you can't use love, treats, praise, any of that kind of stuff to negotiate with a dog that believes that he's the top dog and you're messing with his food. It's like cashmere. It's like no amount of pleading and submissiveness out of any of these dogs is going to get Cashmere to give up her food bowl. It's not the way it works. So anyway, so that is the result. And the dog, unfortunately, is extremely insecure, very insecure, which is what happens when they have an owner that refuses to be the alpha and give any direction. The dog had a doggy door. He let himself out whenever he wanted to go out. He had free run of the house. His nails were super long, so he hadn't had his nails trimmed. Just nothing. And they dressed him up like a parade animal, literally with all these ribbons and colors and this and that. And now the dog is in pieces at the breeder's home, and they're even worried about not being able to handle the dog. And so I told them, get him a muzzle, and I'll go over there and I'll start doing some groundwork with him, and you guys might get to see that if we can get that on video. So, it's just, what sucks is that I'm sure that this guy had the right intentions. I'm sure he loved the dog very much. I'm sure that he's a really great guy. I'm not speaking negatively about him. I'm speaking negatively about his trainer's advice and methodology, and the implementation of that, and how dangerous it is and what it resulted in. And so, positive reinforcement, for anybody that doesn't know, came from people that were working with wild animals for circus, for show. Okay, we're talking people that use tigers and cetaceans, so dolphins, that are in SeaWorld and things like that, and they realized that if you used a food reward, you could get an animal to do something that it doesn't really technically want to do, and it works great. The problem is that people are now trying to spout that as a way to live with dogs, and the difference is that what they're doing with the dolphins and stuff is just tricks, right? They're incentivizing a behavior, that's it. When you live with a dog, you are trying to teach obedience. That's a totally different thing. Obedience and trick training are two extremely different things that are nowhere even closely related, okay? You can have a tiger do all kinds of tricks and whatnot, but let me tell you something, you are not the alpha over that lion or tiger or anything like that. And if he decides he doesn't want to work that day, then you better get out of that cage, because otherwise you're going to be meat. And many people know that when they're not in the mood, you leave them alone. And if you want to live with a dog like that, where whatever it says goes, and you live with it and it doesn't live with you, then, by all means, but you're going to end up getting chewed up because you're going to do something that dog doesn't like, or he's going to set a boundary or rule that you may not like, and you decide, well, actually, this one I don't really like, and then all of a sudden you're trying to tell the alpha what you're going to do and what you're not going to do. And he's going to give you a correction, which is exactly what that dog did to that guy. He gave him a correction. The guy had been messing with his food because the dog was obviously, he had food aggression, right? So the guy was like, well, that's not okay. Apparently he was growling at his wife, wanted to take care of it, pregnant wife, mind you. And so he started to try to handle it. And the first time what he did is the dog growled and he walked up and he just did this. He just did, hey now, hey. He did that. Now, and if a dog is warning you and he's growling at you and you walk up and you're just like, hey now, hey, expect to get beaten up. Expect that. That dog is serious, and you came at him with like a playful little, come on now, that ain't gonna do nothing. And sure enough, he got chased around the house. The dog didn't bite him. He cornered him. And that's a serious correction right there. He had been growling at them. Keep in mind, from the dog's perspective, he's the alpha, he's the cashmere, and he keeps telling these people, don't mess with me while I'm eating. And they all of a sudden, even though he's the alpha, and they've never messed with him before that, and keep in mind, he's super trick trained, you know what I mean? He'll sit, he'll lay down, he'll stay, he'll do all that, but he's not obedient in the slightest. And so he's growling at them. He's letting them know in every way that an alpha can, stay out of my food. This is mine, stay out of it. And they're not listening. And so he gives them the warnings, then he chases them around. They still don't listen. And then the last one is he calls the dog off the food. It's already a trigger issue. It's not like the dog's dumb. He knows that there's an issue between them with that food. And he calls the dog over to him, makes the dog sit, and then literally crouches down in the dog's face and trying to praise the dog, at which point the dog growls at him, because now what you've done is you challenged the dog for his food, then you got in his face, a further challenge. Then when the dog growled, he stood up and took a step back. So you challenged the dog, then you back down to the challenge, and what did the dog do? He was like, you know what? I'm done with this. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to end this. I'm going to make this no longer an issue. I'm going to teach him, just like Kashmir taught Admiral, don't challenge me over a stick. And he bit the guy. Now, did the guy lose any fingers? No. Did he lose any tendons? No. Did he lose any muscle? No. That already tells you it was a correction. It was not an attack in the sense that he was not trying to kill that man. He was not trying to, mutilate that man. He was giving him a physical correction. Stop messing with my food, because he's the alpha and he's always been the alpha. And this guy is over here trying to assert dominance that he does not have. So that's the danger of treat training and positive reinforcement training, because it leads people to think that they have authority that they don't have, because it gives the illusion of obedience. And then whenever you actually get into a situation where true alpha roles matter, then you end up getting yourself hurt. So, that's my little rant on that. You guys may get to see him, like I said. We'll see if I can get, because I'm going to be working with the dog, so I'm going to have somebody else film it. So hopefully I can do that. But yeah, it's not going to be pretty. I'll warn you now, it's not going to be pretty. This is a dog that challenges people and tries to eat them up whenever they don't do what he wants, or they push him in a way that he doesn't like being pushed. And he's going to have to learn that his physical prowess cannot be used against a person to win. And that is not an easy thing to see. So just letting you know that now. Those of you that don't like that kind of stuff, that don't like to see a dog have to have a pretty serious correction, we're talking, most likely what's going to end up happening with this dog is a lot like what you saw with Caesar Milan, with that wolf hybrid German Shepherd thing that he would get aggressive and want to attack people, he would want to attack dogs, and then when he couldn't get to them, he would redirect that aggression up the leash towards the owner and try to attack the owners. And they were literally thinking they had to put him down. And that's where this dog is at. If I can't get this dog to stop trying to attack people for telling him what to do, he's going to be put down. So you have to ask yourself, is one hard training where he has to learn that he can't use his physical prowess against me, is that worse than death? You know what I mean? That's the question you have to ask yourself with a dog like that. And this happened not because this person neglected this dog, not because they didn't feed him, not because they didn't love him, but the opposite. They loved him too much, and they were too soft, and they couldn't do what it took to live with this animal in the way that he was designed and evolved to live, in the society and the languages that he was designed to understand, which is the canine language of social hierarchy. So anyway, so that's that. I'm gonna take these dogs in. They're all really hot. I had to fix Admiral's ears. I did the posts, but the glue that I got is like a medical glue. Apparently it's not working. Maybe I didn't clean his ears well enough. So I will fix that. And then, like I said, I hope y'all have a good day. And those of you that are interested in this dog's progress, you'll see it. I know that it's going to upset some people. There's a lot of people out there with a lot more emotions and common sense. So I'm warning you now, if you're one of those kind of people, just don't watch. You know what I mean? Literally, just don't watch. Because if you think that killing an animal is more merciful than one good lesson where he has to learn that he's not the top dog, then you shouldn't be on this channel to begin with. Because that's not the way that I work. It's literally like saying that, that we should just kill people that break laws because it's better than having them go to prison and actually, have them have a consequence for their behavior, So I don't prescribe to that idea. So anyway, I hope you guys are having a good day, and I will talk at you later. Bye.